2 years ago I took part in an orchard survey in this area, and Swavesey is one of these areas where in the 1960s and 70s we had a huge number of orchards, and now in 2019 we have only about 3 or 4% of those orchards left. So I had this idea that it would be nice to have a community orchard in the village, and we started off looking for suitable land on which to do this project, and eventually Church Green came up. Church Green is owned by a former resident of this village. In fact, the son of the doctor, some people may remember, Dr. John Ford, who lived in the manor house in the 60s and 70s and was a village doctor. His son Richard lives in Australia, and by various means we have got in touch with him and set out to lease, which the parish council has taken out on our behalf. And here we are today, planting the first of 40 trees which are going to set us off. We've got a mixture of plums, apples, damsons, greengages and pears, and we've set them out across the field here, taking into account the water problems that we might happen in the future, and we hope that every one of these 40 trees is going to grow through to fruition. An organisation known as Orchard East has been established via lottery funding, heritage lottery funding, to fund orchards across the region. And they require us to set out a traditional orchard, so the trees are quite widely spaced compared to what you might see elsewhere. And they're all on very vigorous rootstocks. We won't allow them to get too big, but in the future, next year, we'll be starting off a pruning programme, and we'll keep them to a height where the villagers can all access trees and we can all pick fruit together. The idea will be that in the future we have further community activities like this, where we'll come out and learn how to prune, we'll come out and pick apples, we'll come out and we'll create juice, maybe even make some cider from the apples and pears, and everyone will have a chance, and hopefully a lot of the children's groups, especially the schools, are involved. The primary school, the Brownies, the Cubs, Scouts. So we're trying to get total involvement in the village. And in addition to the orchard part, we're now going to establish a wildflower meadow. We're going to try and create or recreate the pond, which is in the corner of the field here, and try and fit in with a frog life project, which is taking part in other parts of the village. We have 3 ponds which are candidates for this frog life project.
So behind us we've got this area of standing water, which at the moment is essentially an ephemeral pond which appears some winters more than others, and we get maybe a foot or 2 of water in a particularly wet season. And what we'd really like to do is to excavate maybe a couple of feet further, which hopefully will bring us down to the water table so that we get permanent water throughout the year. And that will basically connect this site up with a series of other ponds that we have scattered around the village, which sit in the same water table. And these other ponds act as a fantastic reservoir for all sorts of wildlife, ranging from newts through to lots of different types of waterfowl. We get lots of dragonflies and other interesting invertebrates around the village. So the idea is really to provide an extra home for the wildlife that's already in Swavesey, and to extend that out into a wider sort of area of marginal planting. So this connects up with the wildflower project that we're hoping to do on this site as well, but we'd really like to introduce some native fenland wildflower species which thrive in the sort of marginal environments on the edge of ponds where you get fluctuating water levels. So the idea is not to line this pond so that it's at a permanent sort of constant level of water, but to allow it to naturally ebb and flow through the seasons, and those sorts of fluctuating conditions are really what are required by certain species, particularly those that are native to the fenland environments that would have been typical of this area in the past. So across the site we're hoping to reintroduce a range of native wildflower species, and in choosing the species we've really tried to select things which would once have been native to this area of Cambridgeshire, but due to changes in land use and the water table and all these sorts of things have started to either go extinct or are really dangerously threatened. So we're hoping to provide safe haven for these species within Swavesey. And we've also tried to choose species which will be suitable for different types of habitat within the site. So we've got some raised areas up on the bank where the footpath is, and some lower areas around the pond. And so the different sorts of soil conditions and water conditions will support a different flora. So we've tried to account for that in the selection of species. And we really want to get the community involved in this effort. So some of the sort of long-term committee members in the orchard group will be growing plants themselves, and we've also got the school involved. We're hoping that other people around the village will help to grow plants from seed up to sort of plug plant size. And later on in the summer this year, we'll aim to start planting those little plants out right across the site. In addition to that, we've got a range of other habitat-oriented initiatives happening around the site. So we've left some piles of deadwood in place already, which will be really good for supporting communities of invertebrates and decomposing fungi of various kinds. We'll also be planting up some copses in the corners of the site, which will provide berries and other sources of forage for birds and bees. We might one day get to the point where we're able to have some beehives on site, which will of course help to pollinate the fruit trees. And in addition to that, we're hoping to grow some willow for local weavers to use in their craft. And we have all sorts of other ideas of things that we might try at some point in the future. So it's just a question of working out what sorts of projects will fit together in the site and complement each other in a nice way.
So having advertised this event over the last 2 to 3 weeks and not knowing quite what was coming weather-wise or people-wise, we've been absolutely fantastic turnout of people today. There was lots of families, children involved in it, and this is exactly what we wanted, a community start to the project. And looking around here now, you can see so many people involved, and we've got so many people here, we've run out of holes for them to dig, but you know, it's not such a bad start, so wonderful. Thank you very much to everybody.